In every era, from ancient villages to the crowded cities we live in today, people have whispered stories about those who drain the strength of anyone who tries to help them. Old folk tales speak of wanderers who carried endless troubles in their pockets, offering only chaos to anyone kind enough to reach out. The Stoics believed that some individuals walk through life like storms, unpredictable, consuming, and unaware of the damage they leave behind. This introduction is not about judgment. It's about understanding how certain patterns of behavior can quietly erode our emotional balance, our time, and even our sense of purpose. And when Seneca warned, "A ship should not sail with every wind," he was reminding us that not every person deserves a place in our journey. To understand these dynamics, we must briefly step into the Stoic worldview. Stoicism was not simply a philosophy of endurance. It was a philosophy of clarity. The Stoics taught that while life throws countless challenges our way, our true power lies in how we respond to them, how we guard our inner world, and how we choose our alliances. They believed that the quality of our life is shaped not just by what we face, but also by whom we walk beside. Marcus Aurelius once observed, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," and the Stoics knew well that the people we allow into our lives can tint our thoughts for better or worse. In their view, helping others was noble, but helping the wrong people was a quiet form of self-destruction. So, before diving into the 8 types of individuals we must avoid rescuing, we face a larger and more uncomfortable question. One that echoes through philosophy, storytelling, and the lived experience of anyone who has ever given too much. How do we recognize the moment when compassion transforms from wisdom into harm? This is the crossroads where Stoic insight meets real life, and where the journey into deeper understanding truly begins. Before we move forward, if that introduction struck something familiar in you, if you've ever carried someone else's storm on your shoulders, then this is your moment to stay connected. Subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments so we can keep building a community that values clarity, strength, and wisdom. Tell me which part resonated with you, or which old folk tale from your own life came to mind as you read. Your engagement helps these conversations grow, and it turns a simple video into a gathering place for people who refuse to let their kindness be a doorway to chaos. Number 1. Ungrateful people. There's a certain kind of person who turns every act of kindness into an open door for more taking. Ungrateful people don't just forget what you've done for them. They behave as if your presence, your effort, and your sacrifice were nothing more than background noise. In psychology, we see this pattern often. When gratitude doesn't exist, entitlement grows like a shadow. The Stoics observed this centuries ago. They believed that character reveals itself most clearly in how a person responds to generosity. Seneca wrote, "He who receives a benefit with gratitude repays the first installment on it." When someone shows no gratitude at all, that first installment never comes, and the cost over time becomes yours. Ungrateful people are dangerous, not because they shout or threaten, but because they slowly drain those who try to lift them. Imagine a villager in an old folk tale who saves a wanderer from a snowstorm. The wanderer accepts the help, warms his hands by the fire, eats the villager's food, and then vanishes before dawn, only to return whenever the cold bites again. These stories didn't survive just for entertainment. They survived as warnings. Beware those who consume without giving, who take without remembering. The Stoics believed that relationships must be anchored in reciprocity, not in grand gestures, but in the simple acknowledgement that kindness matters. Gratitude, to them, was a sign of a well-ordered soul. What makes ungrateful people so destructive is not their silence, it's their rewriting of the story. Help them once, and they act as if you merely did your duty. Help them twice, and they come to expect it. Help them a third time, and they begin to believe the help was always theirs, never yours to give. Marcus Aurelius warned about this subtle erosion of boundaries when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not other people's." But the Stoic lesson here is deeper. You must protect your inner dignity by choosing wisely where your support flows. When a person's heart is closed to gratitude, your effort becomes a seed thrown into barren soil. So the question becomes unavoidable, and it's one every thoughtful person must eventually face. How do we recognize the moment when our generosity is no longer compassion but self-betrayal? Understanding this line is the key to seeing ungrateful people for who they truly are, and the first step toward reclaiming your energy from those who never intended to honor it. Number 2. Lazy people. There's a certain heaviness that settles around people who refuse to move forward in their own lives, almost like a fog that clings to anyone who comes too close. Lazy people don't simply lack motivation. They often rely on the energy of others to replace the effort they refuse to give. You step in once to help them get started, and suddenly you're the engine that keeps their world running. Psychology shows us that when someone becomes dependent on another person's effort, they quickly lose even the little drive they once had. The Stoics recognized this truth long before modern science, noting that a person who avoids the work of their own life also avoids the growth that makes life meaningful. Stories from old traditions often warn us about this type of person. One tale tells of a man who carried his neighbor's sacks of grain to the mill every week. At first, it was an act of kindness, one moment of generosity in a hard winter. But soon the neighbor stopped trying altogether. He would sit by the fire, waiting, certain the work would be done for him. The villagers weren't surprised when the helper's strength faded long before the lazy man's grain ever ran out. Folk tales like this endure because they speak to something we still see today. When you carry the full weight for someone who refuses to lift even a finger, both of you lose something important. As Epictetus warned, no great thing is created suddenly, especially not in someone who refuses to try. Lazy people often disguise their inertia with excuses, dramatic stories, or promises of starting tomorrow. But tomorrow rarely comes, and each new excuse becomes a chain that binds them tighter to inaction. Worse still, they begin to see your effort as part of the natural order, not as the sacrifice it truly is. The Stoics believed that real, consistent effort is part of a person's moral character. They admired those who struggled through hardship, who built their strength like a blacksmith shaping iron. Helping someone who refuses to strike even a single blow does not build their character, it blunts yours. And so we arrive at the question that every generous person must eventually face. When does helping someone who won't help themselves stop being kindness and start being a slow erosion of your own life? Understanding this boundary is essential, because without it, you may spend your strength on someone who never intended to stand on their own feet. Number 3. Irresponsible people. There's a certain chaos that follows irresponsible people wherever they go, like a trail of small fires only half extinguished. These are the individuals who move through life, leaving broken promises, missed deadlines, and unfinished commitments behind them, expecting someone else to clean up the mess. Psychology sees this pattern clearly. When a person repeatedly avoids accountability, someone nearby is always forced into the role of the rescuer. The Stoics observed this same human tendency centuries ago. They believed that responsibility wasn't just a practical habit, it was a reflection of a person's inner order, the structure of their character. Without that structure, everything they touch becomes unstable. Many cultures tell stories about people like this. In one old tale, a young man is entrusted with carrying a lantern through a dark forest so the group can walk safely. But he grows careless, swinging the lantern, letting its flame weaken. When it finally goes out, the group is plunged into darkness, stumbling blindly, tripping on roots and stones. The boy apologizes, of course, but someone else has to take their own lantern, sacrifice their own safety, and guide the rest of the journey. The story remains popular because it feels so real. Irresponsible people often apologize, but they rarely change. Their pattern becomes a burden others carry for them. As Seneca warned, faults are theirs who act, and ours who do not check them. What makes irresponsible people so draining is their ability to create urgency out of thin air. Their forgotten tasks, missed obligations, and reckless decisions suddenly become your emergency. They live in a world where consequences always land on someone else's shoulders. The Stoics emphasized the importance of discipline, not the harsh kind, but the steady, self-respecting discipline that holds a person together from within. They admired those who kept their word, who took ownership when things went wrong, who didn't look for a scapegoat. To them, responsibility was a virtue that shaped the quality of a life, and helping someone who refuses to practice it isn't compassion, it's participation in their disorder. And so, as we approach the heart of this topic, one crucial question rises from both psychology and Stoic wisdom alike. How long can we carry the weight of someone else's chaos before it becomes our own? This is the turning point, the place where generosity must be examined carefully, because without clarity, helping an irresponsible person can slowly pull you into the storms they create. Number 4. Cheaters and players. Imagine a shadow slipping through the cracks of trust, a person who smiles while hiding daggers behind their back. Cheaters and players thrive on exploiting the generosity and naivety of others. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be." B1. When you extend a hand to someone who thrives on deception, you are not uplifting them. You are teaching them that betrayal is rewarded. In real life, consider the story of your friend who lent a colleague money, only for that colleague to vanish the next day. That heartbreak isn't a lesson in charity, it's a lesson in discernment. Stoicism teaches that virtue lies in integrity, not in blind compassion. These individuals often possess charm that disarms your caution, but Stoics warn that appearances are just the surface of character. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Cheaters and players feed on that arrogance, convincing you that you can change them or see the good in them. But every act of deception chips away at your peace and clarity. Think of the times you've tried to advise someone, only to see them return to the same toxic patterns. It's a cinematic tragedy unfolding in real life. The Stoic lens doesn't ask you to harden your heart, but it insists you recognize patterns of harm before they ensnare you. Stories from every culture warn us of these predators. The charming partner who betrays your trust, the smooth-talking friend who pockets your ideas, the coworker who steals credit while pretending loyalty. Each tale echoes the Stoic call for vigilance. The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look beyond the superficial. Helping a cheater doesn't illuminate your virtue, it exhausts it. Real wisdom lies in allocating your time, energy, and care to those who match your integrity, not those who use it as a stepping stone. At the heart of this cinematic drama lies a harsh but vital truth. Not everyone deserves your generosity. Some will repay it with ruin, some with lies, and some with nothing at all. Learning to recognize the patterns of deception is a Stoic form of self-preservation, a way to stand tall amidst the chaos. You are not cruel for saying no. You are disciplined, conscious, and alive to the dangers around you. And remember, the shadow only grows longer when you chase it. The Stoics urge you to turn your light elsewhere, where it can truly illuminate and create lasting virtue. Number 5. Constant critics. Picture walking through a storm where every raindrop is a word of judgment. This is the life of someone surrounded by constant critics. These people thrive on pointing out flaws, dissecting decisions, and belittling efforts. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." With critics, this is literal. Their ceaseless commentary turns even small mistakes into mountains, not for your growth but to feed their ego. Helping them, whether offering advice, emotional labor, or opportunities, often backfires because their purpose is not improvement, but assertion of superiority. Folktales from every culture warn of this type. The neighbor who spreads gossip after you lend a helping hand, or the relative who nitpicks every gesture of kindness until it collapses under scrutiny. The danger lies in how they disguise criticism as concern. Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Constant critics are masters at provoking reactions, drawing you into arguments or guilt. The cinematic drama unfolds when your patience and goodwill are weaponized against you. Your efforts never earn gratitude, only more judgment. Imagine a colleague who, no matter how hard you work on a project, finds fault in every line. This is not constructive feedback. It's a black hole consuming your energy. Stoicism teaches discernment. Knowing whose opinions are worthy of attention is a form of wisdom, not cruelty. Helping constant critics can also erode your self-trust. The more you justify, explain, or bend to their standards, the more you lose touch with your own values. Think of the story of the artist who stopped painting for years because every attempt was met with harsh, unsolicited critiques from a friend masquerading as a mentor. The Stoics warn that the soul grows weaker when fed with constant judgment rather than encouragement. True guidance nurtures growth, but criticism that's endless and harsh is a poison disguised as advice. The cinematic lesson is clear. Not all voices deserve a stage in your life. Some will applaud, some will guide, and some will tear down. Learning to spot the constant critic is learning to protect your spirit and preserve your peace. Seneca's wisdom echoes here. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Refuse to pour your energy into endless fault-finding. Instead, direct it toward those who inspire, uplift, and create. Your life is not a theater for someone else's judgment. It's the story you write, scene by scene, with courage, clarity, and quiet strength. Number 6. Narcissists. Imagine walking into a room where every mirror reflects only their face, every story revolves around their triumphs, and every conversation is a stage for their applause. Narcissists thrive on attention, validation, and control. They don't ask for help to grow. They ask for help to feed their ego. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." When you try to help a narcissist, you are often blinded by their charm and charisma, only to discover that your efforts serve them, not the greater good. A familiar story. The coworker who borrows your ideas, not to collaborate, but to take the spotlight. The help you offered becomes a ladder for their self-glorification, leaving your contributions invisible. What makes narcissists dangerous is their ability to manipulate morality and loyalty. Epictetus said, "We should not be surprised at the behavior of others, but be surprised at our own willingness to be deceived." Every act of generosity toward a narcissist risks being twisted into a weapon, guilt-tripping, flattery, or even threats disguised as advice. Think of the friend who repeatedly needs your support but vanishes when it's your turn to lean on them. Their life is a narrative where you are a prop, not a partner. And the Stoics urge us to recognize such roles before surrendering our energy. Helping narcissists can also erode your sense of self. The more you bend, explain, or rationalize their behavior, the more you internalize their distorted reflection. Folktales and legends often echo this truth. The hero who lends a magical sword to someone seeking glory, only to find the sword used against them. Stoicism teaches that wisdom lies in observing patterns and acting with discernment. You don't need to withdraw compassion entirely, but you must safeguard it. Aid given without boundaries to someone who cannot reciprocate is like throwing water into a desert storm. It disappears without effect. The cinematic drama here is unmistakable. Your generosity becomes a silent victim of someone else's grand production. The Stoics remind us that the greatest victory is maintaining inner harmony while navigating the chaos of human character. Seneca's words resonate. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Turn your light toward those who grow, inspire, and reflect mutual respect. Narcissists will always seek your energy, but your life is the screenplay, and you decide who gets a starring role. Number 7. Opportunists. Picture someone who waits in the shadows, eyes scanning for weakness, ears tuned to whispers of chance. Opportunists are people who seize every opening, not out of ambition, but out of selfish calculation. Seneca once warned, "The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable." Opportunists exploit this anxiety, presenting themselves as allies while quietly maneuvering to benefit at your expense. Imagine lending your expertise to a coworker who promises collaboration, only to see them take full credit when the opportunity arises. Your generosity becomes fuel for their climb, not for shared growth. What makes opportunists especially dangerous is their charm. Epictetus observed, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The opportunist lacks this mastery. They are driven by impulse and advantage, not integrity. Their flattery and persuasion are designed to hook you emotionally, leaving you blindsided when your efforts are redirected to their gain. Think of folk stories where a traveler gives food to a stranger, only to have the stranger betray them to the bandits. In real life, helping an opportunist often leads to frustration, resentment, and loss. Opportunists rarely change because their moral compass spins toward gain rather than virtue. Every act of aid you provide is filtered through their lens of, "What can I get?" This is not an attack on generosity. It is a call to discernment. Helping should uplift both parties or serve a greater good, but with opportunists, it becomes a tool for exploitation. Stoicism teaches that prudence is as vital as kindness. Protecting your energy is not selfish. It is a deliberate choice to act in harmony with virtue rather than be a pawn in someone else's game. The cinematic truth is stark. The story of your life can be hijacked by those who only see what they can take. Stoics urge awareness and reflection. Associate with those who improve you, not those who drain you, as Seneca would advise. You can offer guidance, wisdom, or aid, but only when it is not a bridge to someone else's selfish gain. Opportunists will always seek to ride the waves of your efforts, but your life is the ocean you choose which currents to follow and which to resist. Number 8. Jealous people. Imagine a room where every success of yours sparks a shadow in someone else's eyes. Jealous people are drawn to your light not to admire it, but to dim it. Seneca wisely noted, "A jealous mind is never satisfied with the good of others." When you offer help or guidance to someone consumed by envy, you are not lifting them. You are lighting a fire they will use to burn your achievements. Think of the folktale where a young farmer shares his fertile land with a neighbor, only for the neighbor to sabotage his crops out of spite. In real life, jealousy often disguises itself as advice, concern, or even friendship, making it dangerously seductive. Jealous people measure their worth against yours rather than seeking self-improvement. Epictetus observed, "If someone does wrong, it is not to harm you, but themselves." Yet, in the case of envy, the harm often comes back to you indirectly. The colleague who subtly undermines your promotion, the friend who spreads rumors after you succeed, the family member who criticizes your choices. They are not motivated by growth, but by the need to reclaim a sense of superiority. Your generosity becomes a tool in their silent campaign, and the cinematic tragedy is that you may not even see it unfolding. Helping someone who is jealous can erode your own confidence. Every act of aid risks feeding their resentment or reinforcing their sense of rivalry. Folk stories echo this pattern. The hero who shares his treasure only to be met with betrayal from the envious companion. Stoicism teaches that discernment is itself a form of virtue. Protecting your efforts, your time, and your peace is not selfish. It is a strategic act of wisdom, a way to maintain your dignity in a world where envy can poison even the kindest intentions. The cinematic drama is that envy often masquerades as closeness, and the fallout can feel like a betrayal in slow motion. Seneca reminds us, associate with those who improve you. Direct your generosity toward those who celebrate rather than sabotage, who inspire rather than diminish. Jealousy is a destructive force, but awareness shields you from it. By recognizing the signs early, you ensure that your efforts illuminate the world rather than fuel someone else's shadows. If you've stayed with me until the end, you now hold a map to navigate the treacherous terrain of human character. The Stoics teach us that wisdom is not just in helping others, but in knowing whom to help and when to step back. Life is full of shadows, people who seek to drain, deceive, or dim your light. But it is also full of allies, mirrors, and kindred spirits who elevate and inspire. Protect your energy, honor your integrity, and let your actions flow toward those who cultivate virtue, not chaos. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Let that be your guiding star. Help where it matters, refuse where it destroys, and write your story with courage, clarity, and unwavering purpose.